In every crime, a story of a survivor, of someone left behind, of someone determined to solve a mystery. These are the stories of crimes that changed lives forever. This is Justice Rules.
A connected Georgia attorney riding in a car with his successful businesswoman wife. She was up front, he was sitting in the back when she was shot. He said it was an accident, that the gun he was holding in his lap for protection just went off. It seemed like police believed him. They charged him with involuntary manslaughter, but prosecutors didn't buy it. Jovita Moore walks us through the compromise that put him behind bars for the rest of his life.
The summer of 2016 saw protests across the country and the rise of the Black Lives Matters movement. As many as 10,000 people rallied on the streets of Atlanta that summer as the movement picked up steam. Peaceful protests, but enough to worry Atlanta lawyer Claude Tex McIver and his wife Diane. The couple had just pulled off the highway in downtown Atlanta on a summer night. A family spokesperson told the Atlanta Journal-Constitution that Tex had been dozing in the back seat of their SUV and noticed people standing on the corner of an intersection. Concerned about the recent unrest, the spokesperson says Tex asked his wife to take the gun out of the glove compartment and pass it to the back seat. Tex dozed off again, and suddenly the gun went off. Diane had been shot in the back. Diane's best friend, Danny Jo Carter, who was driving the SUV, raced the couple to a hospital. That's where Diane died.
She still believes that this was an accident. She cannot get her mind wrapped around the idea of anything other than that. Tex and Diane were both her friends for a very long time.
Police and prosecutors spent months gathering evidence in the case, examining the SUV and the McIvers' financial records to determine if there was any motive behind the shooting. Tex faced no immediate charges, but then rumors swirled when Tex decided to hold an estate sale and sell off his wife's clothing, jewelry, and furs. That sale drew thousands of people.
I've never seen a collection of clothing this large in a private home. Prada, Valentino, Chanel, Jimmy Choo. It's pretty magnificent. I think she traveled all over the world and bought things in different countries and, probably picked things up along the way.
Then just 4 days before Christmas, Atlanta police announced they are charging McIver with manslaughter and reckless conduct, charges that seem as if police believe the shooting was an accident. However, McIver is ordered to wear an ankle bracelet, hand over his passport, and all of his guns.
Where Mr. McIver is in life right now, it is a tough place to be in.
McIver continued to fight the rumors that there was a financial motive, but court documents emerged showing that McIver had borrowed $350,000 from his wife and was supposed to pay back the loan with interest. McIver told the Atlanta newspaper he used the money to build a barn on their ranch, but admitted the couple kept their finances mostly separate. That triggered the district attorney to dig deeper into the couple's finances. It was then, in April 2017, that investigators from the district attorney's office found another gun while serving a warrant, a violation of Texas bond.
Why would he have a gun? And I'm gonna tell you, Judge, what you can infer from some of the evidence. It's because he is infatuated with guns.
The gun, a Glock 9mm, was found in Tex McIver's sock drawer. McIver's attorneys suggested that others may have planted that gun to frame him, send him back to jail, and force him to plead guilty.
I am going to revoke Mr. McIver's bond, but I am amenable to reinstating it. And so what that means is that Mr. McIver is going to go into custody today.
Just a day later, after the judge sent McIver back to jail, a grand jury indicted him, this time on murder charges. It alleges that McIver meant to shoot and kill his wife in that SUV.
He's a 74-year-old man. He is emotionally drained. I don't think he slept a full night since his wife's death. And I'm very concerned about him being in jail right now, and we're trying to get him out as quickly as we can.
McIver would remain in jail for another 8 months. But right before his release, he granted an interview in his cell and talked about why he had a gun on his lap.
I'm an Eagle Scout, and as I learned in the Scouts, it's your obligation to protect people around you. And that's what I was doing that night. That's what I've done other times. And sometimes that's a weapon, sometimes it's martial arts, it's whatever we need. But guns are not my thing. I just miss my wife so much. It was the perfect marriage. Every day I reach for her in the morning when I wake up. Anyway, I've got to rely upon my faith at this point.
McIver found himself back in court, this time for his trial. Prosecutors opened by painting a picture of a killer.
This is a case about maintaining an image of wealth and power. The easiest way for him to gain control was to kill Diane. Diane McIver opened the console and picked up a gun that was in a plastic Publix bag, handed it to the defendant, not knowing that that would be the weapon that ended her life. Somehow the defendant wants you to believe that the death of Diane McIver was an accident. But ladies and gentlemen, this was no accident at all. And the evidence will show that this was indeed murder.
Prosecutors accused McIver of asking a friend to pay off the district attorney to make the charges go away. His attorneys shrugged it off.
This was not a serious comment. The fact it was a stupid comment. Tex did not mean for Jeff Dickerson to run off and try to bribe Paul Howard.
McIver's attorney called a friend of the family as a witness.
You observed that they had a loving relationship.
Yes.
All right. And you were asked to describe, I think on direct, you were asked to describe their relationship. And it was, to you, it appeared to be a very good relationship?
Yes.
Never saw them argue?
No.
They also argued that Tex killed Diane because she changed her will to keep him from getting the couple's ranch. Instead, it would go to their godson.
She had no children. So it was like, I guess you could say, a grandson to her. You know, she cherished the ground that boy walked on, literally.
And then the star witness, the driver, Danny Joe Carter.
I heard a big boom, and I didn't know what it was. I thought there was an explosion somewhere. Diane turned around, like, she turned around this way. She slung around and she says, "Tex, what did you do?" She said, "Tex, she shot me."
Carter says McIver leaned forward to console Diane, but she says he never attempted to figure out where her injury might be. Instead, he directed Carter to drive to Emory Hospital instead of calling 911. And once there, Danny Joe says that Tex asked for his phone.
And he said, "I know this doesn't look good." And I knew he was calling his attorney because that's what attorneys do.
She says he directed her to make statements to police.
You just need to say you came down here as a friend of the family. I don't trust these guys. Danny Joe, I hate to see you get wrapped up in this. I've seen how these things can go down. I didn't understand why I needed to make up a story when there wasn't anything. There was no reason to make up another story besides that I'd driven them to the emergency room.
And on cross-examination,
Tex was the kind of man and the kind of husband. He'd get up early, he'd cook breakfast, he'd bring breakfast and coffee to Diane. Correct? And Tex McIver referred to Diane McIver all the time as darling, right?
Yes.
All the time?
All the time.
Then jurors got to hear how Tex explained the shooting to police.
I said, I look, if you don't mind, please hand me my truck. I was in the center console. We've had some break-ins in our office where the only thing they're looking for seems to be a gun. And so in response to that, I grabbed my gun in the public grocery sack, so she came to a stop. And I was handling the gun. I realized it was in my lap, right? And I immediately called out, said, "Everybody all right?"
Weeks of testimony ended as Tex McIver waived his chance to testify, and attorneys for both sides made their final case.
He is guilty. He is guilty.
The gun was aimed. The gun was in perfect working condition.
When he killed Diane McIver, you know, it's like hitting the lottery. Like hitting the lottery. Because if she stopped supporting him in the manner in which he was accustomed, he had a problem.
Who would ever plan to commit a murder and ask the victim to please hand me the gun?
We do not convict people on the clouds and fogs of speculation, but on the bedrock of fact.
We're not talking about reasonable doubts here. We're talking about just astonishing improbabilities.
After 6 days of deliberations, the jury came back without a decision.
We don't see a path to overcome our differences on the defendant's intent related to charges 1, 2, 3, 5. I'm going to share with the jurors that they need to continue their deliberations after they have a lunch break. I am going to inform them that they should remain thoughtful, consider each count individually, that they should consider lesser included offenses.
Then, just a few hours later,
on count 1, murder, we find the defendant not guilty. On count 2, felony murder, we find the defendant guilty of felony murder. On count 3, aggravated assault, we find the defendant guilty. On count 4, possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony, we find the defendant guilty. On count 5, influencing a witness, we find the defendant guilty.
the jury found Tex McIver guilty of felony murder, a crime of intent, with a mandatory sentence of life in prison.
Difficult.
1 month later, at his sentencing, McIver spoke one last time about his wife.
The luckiest day of my life is when Diane chose me. And in doing so, we started a relationship that was, can only be described as amazing. We loved each other like small children.
The judge, Robert McBurney, pointed out what McIver did not say.
I didn't ever hear you say you're sorry for what you did. To me, that silence speaks volumes.
The judge granted Tex McIver the possibility of parole after he completes 30 years behind bars. He'd be over 100 years old by then.
A shooting, a sunken fishing boat, and millions of inheritance money. A dramatic equation investigators believe adds up to murder.
Why would someone refuse to answer questions about the disappearance of their mother and the death of their grandfather?
The challenge police face in finding enough evidence to prove it.
A tale of murder, mystery, and money is the focus of litigation in 2 states right now. What happened to Linda Carman, presumed lost at sea, and her father murdered in his bed in Connecticut? At the center of it all, one person who stands to inherit millions. Reporter Bob Ward takes a deeper look at the accusations swirling around Nathan Carman.
Hello, this is Nathan Carman.
Nathan, this is United States Coast Guard Boston. I need to understand what happened.
More than a year after that dramatic rescue at sea, many are still trying to understand what really happened to Linda Carman and to her wealthy father, real estate mogul John Chocolus. Nathan Carman is the last person known to be with either of them, and the suspicions build from there.
Why would someone refuse to answer questions about the disappearance of their mother and the death of their grandfather? It's terribly disturbing.
Boston attorney Dan Small represents Linda Carman's sisters. They're seeking a court order in New Hampshire to block Nathan from ever gaining an inheritance worth millions.
We're alleging that Nathan Carman murdered his grandfather, John Chocolus.
Just before Christmas 2013, John Chocolates was shot to death in his bed in his Connecticut home. Hours earlier, Nathan and his grandfather had dinner at the house. Authorities allege before the murder, Nathan bought a powerful rifle that matches the caliber of the gun used to kill John Chocolates, but Nathan did not tell police about it when they first asked, and Nathan won't explain where that gun is right now.
How do you lose a gun like that? How do you forget about it when the police ask you? But how do you lose it? Do you leave it at the Dunkin' Donuts or something? The story is nonsense, and it's deeply disturbing.
Nathan Carman was nearly charged for his grandfather's murder, but a judge refused to sign an arrest warrant without more information. A year later, the daughter of John Chocolates was upset because his killer was still out there.
This person killed at least once that we know of. This person's gotten away with murder, and chances are it will happen again.
2 years after that statement, Linda Carman, Nathan's mother, was lost at sea during a fishing trip with Nathan in his boat near Block Island. Nathan cannot explain why the boat sank or what happened to Linda. He never sent a distress call, yet he had time to load a life raft with provisions. After a week at sea, he was rescued and said little other than to ask the Coast Guard where his mom was. An insurance company is now claiming the sinking was no accident, that Nathan himself made modifications to the boat that caused it to sink.
He was so affected by the loss of his mother that apparently one of his first calls was to his criminal defense attorney. That's how he was affected.
Even before Nathan got back on dry land, police searched his Vermont home looking for evidence. Nathan Carman didn't have much to say to reporters there either.
I feel healthy. Feel healthy. Emotionally, I've been through a huge amount.
Nathan Carman still lives in this house in Vernon, Vermont. We wanted to talk to him. We think it's important to get his side of the story. But all of his phones are disconnected. And once we got here, it was apparent. Doesn't seem like Nathan Carman is interested in talking to us. The handwritten note warns no media personnel beyond this point. My email request was not answered.
I would just like to thank the public for their prayers and for their concern.
Nathan Carman was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, a developmental disorder that affects social interaction. We asked Dr. Ellen Broughton, clinical psychologist at Mass General Hospital, how that might impact Nathan's role in these cases.
Being obsessed with guns doesn't necessarily mean he's obsessed with using the guns. And that doesn't mean they can't commit violent crimes, but it's not associated with violent crimes at all. And in fact, a lot of kids with Asperger's and young adults with Asperger's are actually very tender-hearted.
Nathan Carman is not charged with any crimes, yet he remains the focus of two fierce battles in two different courts. Is Nathan Carman a dangerous person?
We believe Nathan Carman is a murderer, and if he gets away with murder, I don't know how else you would define a dangerous person than that.
And right now, Nathan Carman remains the only person who can shed significant light on a very dark mystery.
In new court documents filed in October 2018, Nathan Carman alleged his 87-year-old grandfather had a 25-year-old mistress who knew he was wealthy, suggesting that could put him at risk for robbery by her or others. No one has ever been charged in connection to the death of John Chocolates. A Pittsburgh woman missing. Her dog found wandering alone. Her burned out car spotted a short time later. But where is Cassandra Gross? Her family has spent months searching for her with little to go on. Reporter Michelle Newell explains their heartbreaking decision to have her legally declared dead, even though her body has not been found.
Every day, Kathy Gross has a routine.
Who can I talk to? Where can I go? Where can I search? Who can I get to help me search? It's constant, all day, every day.
It's been that way since April, the month her daughter, Cassandra Gross, disappeared. Cassandra's blind and diabetic dog was found in the Beatty Crossroads area, and the same day Gross's parents reported her missing. After that, Cassandra's burnt-out car was spotted in a wooded area along train tracks near Twin Lakes Park. Police searched 2 homes connected to Gross's ex-boyfriend. Thomas Stanko is in the Westmoreland County Prison on unrelated charges. And this past weekend,
Sunday,
like many other days, Cassandra's mother and others held on to hope with each step they took.
She's not where we searched.
There is another day the Gross family has to add to their sorrow.
January 22nd at 9 o'clock, courtroom 9, is the hearing day.
That court day is for something Gross's son and attorney are requesting.
She needs to be declared dead because it will not only help my grandson with some closure, but I'm hoping it will help the police build their case better.
A case that doesn't seem to be moving nearly as fast as the days that have gone by. Kathy has put her life and health on hold just to find her daughter, even skipping her own cancer treatments.
Until I find her. And then if it's too late, that's okay too. But it's all about her. I've got to bring her home.
In January 2019, a judge formally declared Cassandra Gross dead 9 months after she disappeared. The judge said that the facts indicate she was the victim of a homicide.
Thank you for joining us tonight. And remember, for so many of these families, one tip could be the key to bringing them closure and putting those responsible behind bars for good.